Let's face it, relationships are hard. No matter how much we love someone or want to make things work, they can be messy, frustrating, and at times downright exhausting. But what if I told you there's an ancient philosophy, hundreds of years old, that could completely transform the way you approach your relationships, whether it's with a partner, a friend, or even family? I'm talking about Stoicism. Yep, you heard that right, Stoicism. And I'm not here to talk about some dusty old philosophy that sounds nice in theory, but doesn't actually apply to real life. No, today we're diving deep into practical Stoic wisdom, tools and strategies that you can start using right now to build stronger, healthier, and more resilient relationships. But here's the catch. Stoicism challenges the very idea that you need someone else to complete you. It forces you to look inward, take responsibility, and shift your mindset. Trust me, this perspective is going to change everything you thought you knew about love, connection, and emotional independence. So if you're ready to take control and step up your relationship game, stick around. Because what you're about to hear will challenge your assumptions and give you powerful tools you can use immediately. Let's dive in. Number 1. Emotional independence. Stop expecting your partner to complete you. You know what they say, you complete me. It sounds beautiful, doesn't it? The idea that one person could be the missing piece in your life, filling you up and making everything whole. But let me ask you, what if that's a trap? What if, instead of finding fulfillment in another person, you're putting all the weight of your happiness on someone else's shoulders? Now, I know what you're thinking, but doesn't love mean being there for each other? Of course it does. But here's the thing, your partner isn't responsible for your happiness. You are. We've all been there, right? In a relationship, feeling like you need constant reassurance, needing validation, expecting your partner to always be the one who lifts your spirits. And let's be honest, it's exhausting. For you and them. We've all experienced those moments when we feel low or insecure, and in an effort to feel better, we turn to our partner for that emotional fix. It's normal, but it's also a bit dangerous. When you rely on someone else to complete you, you're creating a situation where your happiness is tied to their actions. What happens when they're not in the mood, when they're stressed, or when they simply need space? Suddenly, you're left feeling lost, incomplete, like you can't breathe without them. But what if the key to a stronger, more fulfilling relationship isn't relying on someone else to fix you, but learning to be emotionally independent? Now hold up. I know this might sound like I'm saying you should just close off, build walls, and not care about your partner's feelings. That's not it at all. What I'm talking about is the freedom to be your own source of strength and joy. Imagine waking up every day knowing that your happiness doesn't depend on someone else's mood. Sounds empowering, right? You get to create your own inner peace. Let me tell you a story. A few months ago, I was in a situation where I felt like my mood was constantly shifting based on how my partner was doing. If they had a bad day at work, I felt it too. If they were stressed, I found myself getting anxious. It wasn't that I didn't care, I did, deeply. But I realized I was putting too much weight on their emotional state. So I decided to make a change. I began setting aside time for myself, doing things that made me feel good, independent of anyone else. I'd take a walk, read a book, meditate, or even just sit in silence for a few minutes. It wasn't always easy at first. I'd catch myself wanting to check in with them, waiting for their reassurance. But little by little, I learned to find contentment within myself. And guess what? Not only did my relationship improve, but I also felt more connected to me. This isn't about closing yourself off from your partner. It's about understanding that no one person can complete you because you are already whole. Your joy, your peace, your fulfillment, they come from within. When you stop depending on someone else to fill that gap, you create a space where both of you can thrive as individuals while still deeply supporting one another. You deserve to reclaim your emotional independence. You deserve to have your own life, your own happiness, and your own sense of fulfillment. And when you do, something amazing happens. Your relationship becomes more balanced, more grounded, and more authentic. You'll no longer feel the need to over-explain yourself, beg for validation, or apologize for taking care of your own needs. So remember this: your happiness isn't someone else's job, it's yours. And once you fully embrace that, you'll find yourself not just in a better relationship, but in a better life. Your peace, your joy, your emotional independence, that's the real key to a fulfilling relationship. Number 2. Radical honesty. Tell the uncomfortable truths. You've probably heard it 1,000 times. Honesty is the best policy. But let's be real for a second. How many of us are actually honest all the time? And I don't mean the, "Oh, I love your new haircut" kind of honesty. I mean the raw, unfiltered truth. The uncomfortable stuff that could make the other person squirm. You know, the things we usually keep to ourselves to avoid conflict, make people like us more, or just keep things smooth. But here's the twist. Radical honesty, being completely open about your feelings and thoughts, isn't as crazy as it sounds. It could actually be the secret sauce to better relationships, whether it's with your partner, your friends, or even your boss. Now you might be thinking, "Whoa, hold up, won't that make things worse?" Trust me, stick with me here. We've all been in situations where we've held back the truth because we didn't want to hurt someone's feelings. You know the type. Your friend asks, "Do I look good in this outfit?" And your immediate thought is, "Honestly, that's not your best look." But instead of telling them the truth, you say, "Oh, it's fine, it's cute." We do it because we don't want to rock the boat, right? It feels easier, safer, less confrontational. But the thing is, by doing this, we end up building walls of dishonesty that can lead to misunderstandings, resentment, and deeper issues down the road. We think we're sparing feelings, but what we're really doing is denying the relationship the opportunity to grow in an authentic way. Now, here's the game changer. Radical honesty isn't about being brutally rude or unkind. It's about being genuinely truthful in a way that respects both you and the other person. It's about saying what's on your mind, even if it's uncomfortable. Imagine how freeing it would be to stop holding back and simply tell the truth, even when it's hard. It's like taking off a mask that's been weighing you down for too long. So why is this so effective? Well, think about it. When you're constantly keeping things in, it builds tension. It's like a pressure cooker waiting to explode. But when you're honest, even about the hard stuff, it's like letting out a little steam before the pressure gets too high. Radical honesty builds trust, transparency, and ultimately a stronger connection with the people around you. Let me give you a real-life example. A few months ago, I was in a situation with a friend who had been constantly late when we made plans. Now, I could have just let it slide, told myself it wasn't a big deal, and kept waiting around. But one day, after another 30-minute delay, I snapped. Instead of quietly fuming, I said, "Hey, I need to be honest with you. It's starting to feel like you don't value our time together, and it's frustrating." I won't lie, it was awkward. I wasn't sure how she would react. But do you know what happened? She apologized, admitted she hadn't been thinking about how her lateness affected me, and we came up with a plan to do better. That conversation wasn't easy, but it completely changed the dynamic of our friendship for the better. We became closer because we were able to talk about what was really going on, instead of skirting around it. Radical honesty gives you the power to take control of your relationships. This is about you reclaiming your voice, your space, and your peace. It's about knowing that your truth matters just as much as anyone else's. And here's the thing. When you start being radically honest, you stop wasting energy on things that don't serve you. No more pretending to be okay when you're not. No more saying yes when you really mean no. No more backing down from uncomfortable conversations because you're afraid of conflict. You step into your power and you realize that your truth is enough. So what's the takeaway? If you want deeper, more authentic connections with the people around you, whether that's your friends, partner, or colleagues, start telling the uncomfortable truths. Yes, it's scary at first. Yes, it might feel awkward. But think about how much freer you'll feel. Your truth, your voice, your integrity, that's where your real strength lies. And when you embrace radical honesty, you'll find that the relationships you've been holding back from actually become richer and more fulfilling. The truth isn't just freeing, it's empowering. Number 3. The art of detachment, love without attachment. Here's a bold thought for you. What if loving someone didn't mean you had to cling to them? What if love wasn't about desperately holding on, but about standing side by side without fear of losing yourself? Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait, isn't love supposed to be about being all in? About having this deep, unbreakable connection? Yes, love is about connection. But let's talk about something that might sound a bit unconventional. Detachment. Before you tune out, trust me on this. It's not about being cold, distant, or emotionless. It's about loving someone fully while letting go of the need to control, possess, or demand their love in return. We've all been there, right? In relationships where you're so emotionally tied to someone that you start losing sight of who you are. You bend over backward to make them happy. You sacrifice your own needs, and you begin to tie your sense of self-worth to their affection. The worst part? When you're constantly worried that if they pull away, your whole world will collapse. You might even find yourself overthinking every text or call, second-guessing every moment of silence. It feels like love is something you have to earn, something you can't live without. But what if, instead of clinging, you could stand free in your love, secure in who you are, regardless of how the other person acts? Here's the radical shift. The art of detachment isn't about loving less. It's about loving with freedom. It's about recognizing that your happiness doesn't depend on someone else's behavior or approval. Love without attachment means you can be fully present with someone, enjoying the connection, but without the desperate need to control or hold on to it. Why does this work? Because attachment creates fear. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, and fear of not being enough. And that fear doesn't just hurt you, it creates tension in the relationship too. On the other hand, when you practice detachment, you build trust in the process. You know that whether the relationship lasts or not, you'll be okay. You'll still be whole, still be you. Let me paint you a picture from my own life. A while back, I was in a relationship where I was so emotionally tied to the other person that I started losing myself. I'd make every decision based on how it would affect them. I'd drop everything to meet their needs, even at the expense of my own. And I started to feel trapped. I realized one day, after a small disagreement, that I felt panicked, thinking if we didn't make up immediately, everything would fall apart. That's when I decided to try something different. I started practicing detachment. I still loved them, still cared deeply, but I stopped acting out of fear. I stopped attaching my happiness to their every move. Instead, I gave myself space to breathe, to reconnect with who I was outside the relationship. The funny thing? The relationship improved. Without the weight of fear and dependency, we were able to communicate more openly, and we became closer than ever. I wasn't constantly walking on eggshells, and neither were they. Here's the truth. Detachment doesn't mean you care less. It means you care in a healthier way. It means you're free to love deeply without drowning in insecurity. You can show up for someone, be there for them, and still respect your own boundaries. This is about reclaiming your space, your peace, and your dignity. You stop living in the shadow of "what if they leave?" and start living in the light of "I am enough, with or without them." You stop sacrificing your identity for love and start enjoying a relationship where both of you are whole individuals first. So, here's your takeaway. Love without attachment is the most freeing kind of love there is. It's love that doesn't suffocate, love that respects both parties, and love that allows you to fully be yourself. When you let go of the need to possess or control, you create space for a deeper, more authentic connection. Your space, your peace, and your dignity, this is how you cultivate love that lasts. When you can love freely, without fear or attachment, you not only transform your relationships, you transform yourself. Number 4. The power of silence. Master the art of saying nothing. Here's a powerful truth. Sometimes saying nothing says everything. Yes, I'm serious. In a world where we're taught to speak up, assert ourselves, and make our voices heard, the idea of saying nothing can feel counterintuitive, almost like giving up your power. But here's the thing. Silence, when used strategically, is one of the most powerful tools you have in your communication arsenal. Now, I know what you're thinking, but if I don't speak up, people might think I'm weak, passive, or uninterested. Trust me, this isn't about shutting down or staying silent out of fear. It's about choosing when to speak, and when silence becomes the loudest message of all. We've all been there, caught in a conversation where we feel like we need to fill every silence with words. Maybe it's an argument, a meeting, or even just a casual chat. The tension starts to rise, and suddenly we feel the need to say something, anything, just to keep the flow going. But what if, instead of desperately trying to fill every gap, we leaned into the silence? Think about that moment when someone's trying to provoke you or pull you into a conflict, and you choose not to engage. Or when a boss is rambling on, but you stay quiet, letting them talk themselves out. There's power in those moments of stillness, and often it can be way more impactful than any response you could give. Here's why silence works. Silence forces others to reflect, to think, and to fill in the blanks. It's like holding a mirror up to the situation. When you don't react right away, you're giving the other person space to process their own words or actions. And guess what? That pause can make them reconsider their approach, or even apologize without you having to say a word. You're not giving away your power or backing down. You're demonstrating self-control, emotional intelligence, and ultimately, respect for your own boundaries. Silence allows you to listen more, reflect more, and respond more thoughtfully. It's the ultimate tool of restraint, and it often works better than any comeback or sharp remark you might think of. Let me give you a real-life example. A few weeks ago, I found myself in a heated discussion with a friend about something that was bothering me. Normally, I would have jumped in, listing out everything that upset me, trying to defend myself and explain my point of view. But this time, instead of reacting immediately, I just stayed quiet. I gave them space to talk, let the silence stretch, and allowed the tension to rise. After a while, they started to soften, reflecting on what they had said and how they might have come across. Finally, they turned to me and said, "You know, I think I was wrong about that. I'm sorry." It was like magic. No shouting, no back and forth, just the power of silence doing its work. The emotional power of silence is profound. It's about reclaiming your inner peace, your dignity, and your autonomy. You stop feeling the need to explain yourself constantly, defend your every move, or justify your feelings. Instead, you stand in your truth, and that silence becomes a form of strength. It's empowering to know that you don't need to respond to everything and that you have control over when and how you engage. This isn't about shutting down communication. It's about using silence as a tool for clarity, reflection, and growth. So, what's the key takeaway here? The next time you're in a situation where you feel the urge to speak, but something inside tells you to pause, listen to that voice. Mastering the art of saying nothing is about knowing when your silence speaks louder than words. It's about understanding that you don't need to fill every moment with noise. Your space, your peace, and your dignity are not dependent on constantly defending yourself or justifying your existence. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is no statement at all. And when you embrace silence, you show the world that your power lies not in what you say, but in when you choose to say nothing at all. Number 5. The practice of compassionate distance. Periodically break the cycle. Here's a thought that might surprise you. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do for the people you love is to give them space. Yes, you heard that right. Compassionate distance is about breaking the cycle of constant interaction and stepping back, just long enough to recharge and refocus. Now, I know what you're thinking, but if I pull away, won't it seem like I don't care? Doesn't love mean being there all the time? Trust me, it's the opposite. Love can be even stronger when it's rooted in the freedom to breathe, and in this fast-paced world, it's a tool we often forget to use. Giving space doesn't mean withdrawing your affection. It means recognizing that sometimes a little distance can be the most loving thing you can do for both yourself and the people around you. We've all been there, haven't we? Overcommitting ourselves in relationships, whether it's family, friends, or a romantic partner, because we feel like we always need to be available. Maybe you're the type of person who feels guilty when you take time for yourself, thinking it means you're neglecting others. Or perhaps you've found yourself stuck in an emotional cycle where it feels like every conversation, every interaction is full of tension or expectation. It's easy to lose sight of your own needs when you're constantly giving, constantly showing up, without stepping back to check in with yourself. You can give so much that you start to feel like you've emptied yourself out. Sound familiar? We've all been there. It's draining, and before long, you start wondering why things don't feel as fulfilling as they used to. Here's the twist. Taking compassionate distance isn't about avoiding people. It's about creating space for both you and them to recharge. The idea is simple. Periodically, take a step back, not out of anger or frustration, but out of a deep sense of respect for your own emotional well-being and the relationship itself. When you give yourself that distance, you allow space for personal growth, self-reflection, and even creativity to blossom. This isn't about ghosting or being distant for the sake of it. It's about the wisdom of knowing when you need to take a breather so you can come back stronger, clearer, and with a deeper appreciation for the people in your life. The reality is, giving space actually strengthens the bond. It allows you to miss each other, to reset the dynamic, and to come back with more energy, more intention, and more love. Let me share a personal story. A few months ago, I was feeling emotionally drained by a close friendship. I found myself constantly giving advice, offering support, and being there for them whenever they needed me. And while I loved this person deeply, I started noticing a shift in myself. I was feeling overwhelmed, disconnected, and resentful. It wasn't that I didn't want to be there for them, but I had forgotten about myself in the process. So instead of continuing on that path, I took a step back. I didn't cut them off. I just took a few days to reset, to breathe, and to focus on my own needs. It wasn't easy. I had to fight the urge to over-explain myself or feel guilty. But when I reconnected with them, I was able to show up from a place of strength and clarity rather than exhaustion. The dynamic shifted. Our conversations became more balanced, more meaningful, and honestly, more supportive for both of us. This is what compassionate distance does. It empowers you to protect your emotional space and your peace. It teaches you to stop over-explaining, to stop justifying why you need time for yourself, and to stop assuming that distance equals rejection. Instead, you reclaim your peace, your space, and your dignity. You acknowledge that you're no good to anyone when you're running on empty. And here's the most important part. It's not selfish. In fact, it's one of the most self-respecting things you can do. By taking that time to recharge, you're ensuring that when you do show up, you're bringing your best, most balanced self into the relationship. So here's your takeaway. Don't be afraid to practice compassionate distance. It's about stepping back for a moment, giving both you and the people you love the space to grow, and coming back together stronger. You'll find that the relationships you care about will flourish, and so will you. Your space, your peace, and your dignity. When you allow yourself that breathing room, you show the world that self-care isn't just a luxury, it's a necessity. And when you give yourself that, you give everyone around you the best version of you.